Welcome, everybody, to Matt's Indie Book Club. This is the first interview for this channel. I know I originally said I wasn't going to do any, but people asked, and here we are. Today, I'm going to be chatting with E.A. Brady. She is an author of many different series and books, and she has been an avid supporter of mine on social media, and I figured it was the perfect person to have on first. So we're going to get to chat about a couple of things, her writing journey, some of her published works, and some of her upcoming works. But without further ado, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's about 8, 9 in the morning, so we're getting the day started.
All right. All right.
Why don't you introduce yourself a bit to everybody?
Sure. My name is E.A. Brady. I would say born and raised New England, but technically born in New York. And then we moved to New England very, very early on. So really, I'm a New Englander. I love it here. All my books are set here. Pretty much my whole family, for the most part, is here. Um, I'm married. I have two kids. They're adults now, which hurts. My youngest we just brought back to college yesterday after after Easter break. So things are always changing, always moving around here. I'm trying to think what else would be an interesting thing to share aside from the married. I do. All right. So I don't know if this interests you, but I live in a haunted house. So that's a thing,
Oh, okay.
right?
That's different.
So
I didn't
yeah,
expect that.
yeah. So that's a thing. Yeah, yeah. So that's a thing. Yeah.
Hmm,
So that's a fun thing
That's a
sometimes.
that's that's a no for me.
Yeah. Well, it's too late when you're already here, but it's
Yeah,
no, it's
that's
good.
true.
It's good. It's fun. Yeah, it's good. But no, so I write contemporary romance. All my books are set in New England, various locations throughout New England, because it's an area that I know and love really well, and so that's where I set my stories.
You do the same thing that I do with that. I do the exact same thing with my books. I write about the Midwest and places that I've lived the most here. Um,
Yeah.
it just makes it easier when you're kind of describing the scenery and things that you can. I think bring across more passion as you're
Yes.
talking about it.
Yes.
What got you into writing romance, and what is it that you love so much about it?
So as so this is sort of a funny story. I don't know. Um, years back, I don't know, like 2016, 2017, something like that. I don't know. It was a while ago, and I was out for a walk, and at this point, I pretty much didn't really read romance. I had read some romances, but I wasn't really an avid reader of really any fiction at that point. Um, and I was out for a walk, and I had my earbuds in, and I was listening to Tom Petty,
Yes.
and this right, you love Tom Petty, right? And the song "All Right for Now." It's sort of a lullaby-ish song, and
Kinda.
I was listening to it. And I played it a couple times, and I was like, this is a great story. It's very short, it's very sweet. And then I started thinking about who could be who's on who is he singing to? Who could it be? It could be his wife, it could be his girlfriend, it could almost be a child. Like it could be anybody. So I started thinking about the idea of story and telling stories. And so I went home and I didn't tell anybody, and I just started writing stories, right? And so I just started writing all these stories, and it was probably maybe a year or so, maybe not quite a year, but I was talking with my husband one day. I'm like, all right, I have something to tell you. And he's like, oh my God, what? And I'm like, so I've started writing. He's like, okay, like that's great. But I thought it was a weird thing what I was doing, and I don't know why, but it was just something I'd never done before, and so it felt very strange, and it was something I kept very, very close to the vest. Um, and so then I just kind of kept playing around with it. I joined a writers group, a local writers group, and kind of branched out and met other writers. And then finally one day my husband and I were driving, and he's like, would you ever consider publishing your stuff? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to do that. And he's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, well, what do you have? And I said, well, I've got this book and this one and this one. And I had probably at this point 5 books, like 5 manuscripts, right? That were probably around the 85 to 90% mark finished. And he looked at me, he goes, all right, pardon my language. He goes, but what the F are you doing with these? Why are you writing these if you're not going to put them out? And I was like, you think I could? He's like, of course you could. So that's what I did. So I spent a couple years fixing some of them up and editing and revising and getting feedback and that's it. And I just started publishing. I just started putting them out into the world, and it's been a total blast. Ever since. I mean, it's not always easy. It's super, especially it's not, particularly lucrative at this point. It's something I really love, so.
Yeah, I definitely I get where you're coming from with that too, because I did not tell anybody for the first long
Oh,
time. I just
yeah.
I've never been one for great grammar, great punctuation and things, and I was like, I don't know what people are gonna think, but I'm just gonna keep it to myself. And
Yeah.
then
Well,
somebody
it's
was like, "Hey,
vulnerable. Like,
it's
yeah,
scary." People, I don't.
it is
People say
scary.
it's not, but it is.
It totally is. It totally is. So I've been friends with the same group of women since we were, some of us in kindergarten, some of us came in, in the middle school, but so basically a very long time. I've been friends with these same people, and I told my best friend in the whole world, so she knew. Even after I had already published books, most of them didn't know, and so we had all gone out for dinner. And I was like, all right, I'm going to tell them all. I'm going to tell them all. And so I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, girls. I'm like, I have something to tell you. And their faces were like, oh no. Kind of like with my husband. They're like, oh no, what's the matter? And I was like, so I write romance books, and I, I mean, I was sweating, I got the shakes because it really is. It's a very vulnerable place to be like, I wrote this thing, and especially with romance, because I write open door romance, right? And it's a very vulnerable thing to share that with anybody, but especially the people that you've known, your whole life. But
Right.
it's it's scary.
It's definitely a ride, though. That's for sure. I mean,
Yes.
I don't regret it. I just recently published my first one last month,
Yes.
actually.
Yep.
Um, and I was like,
And congratulations on that.
"Thank you, thank you." I was like, "Oh, it's like I don't know. Just we're gonna see what happens."
Yes.
So,
Yes.
um, have you written in any other genres besides romance yet?
So yes and no. Um, so I've only published romance. I do have one story that was sort of, well, not sort of. I suppose it's sort of a paranormal, but it's like angels and demons, like not like werewolves and vampires. It's that sort of
Right.
that realm of things. But it hasn't really gone anywhere because I haven't. It's like I had sort of an idea. Basically, what happened was I had a really terrifying nightmare one night in real life. And so I started playing around with how that could work into a story. And I sort of was able to kind of build some scenes around the nightmare, really. Um, and then I never was able to really do much with it because I didn't have the rest of the cast of characters figured out and really what the point of everybody was. So I have played around with stuff, um, but I I like romance, so I tend to move forward with that. But I do occasionally go back to that paranormal because it was it was one of those dreams, that nightmares, whatever you want to call it, that even now 5 6 7 years later I can recall it like it was a movie that I just saw. It was so I do play around with stuff, but I haven't finished anything, and I certainly haven't published anything.
You're telling me your house doesn't give you any inspiration?
So So, see, but my house is not. So with one very very glaring exception, my house is not scary haunted. My house is like I was in the kitchen, and and my kitchen is on the second floor, and there's a set of stairs outside my kitchen that goes outside. And I was home by myself, and I heard what I thought was my son coming home, and because he would walk home from school, and I looked at the clock and I went, "Boy, that's early for him to be home. What the heck is going on?" So I went out, and I'm like, there's nobody in my hallway. Like there was nobody out there, but the steps were very clearly. So it's that kind of stuff. It's a lot of
Okay.
footsteps, those kinds of things. It's they're not scary. You kind of start getting used to them, but no, that dream that I had was just terrifying. But my house, with one exception, has never been scary. So
Right. Yeah, I can definitely tell you I've had a dream or two like that I actually wrote into the second book, and I was like, man, it's something that, especially if it's something that has to do with, you dying or getting seriously hurt, um
yeah,
it just sticks with you for one reason or another. So it kind of, that's how I tend to get those things out, is I just write about them. Even if I'm not going to publish
yes,
something with it, I just write about
yes, yeah. You
it.
got to get it out of your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's the number one thing. I think that's why a lot of people journal so much too, is because
yep,
it's kind of your way to get everything out of your head and decompress before you go to bed or before you start your
yep,
day to unload from the
yep.
previous.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a bit about the latest release that's out, the Berkshire Romance series?
So actually, so the Berkshire series is actually the first series that I wrote. And that's a set of three. Basically, they're all standalone stories, but they're set in the same town, so they kind of share the same universe. Um, and there's very sort of tangential crossover, like, someone will be mentioned in one of the books, and if you didn't read the other book, it wouldn't matter. Like you wouldn't miss anything. So they're a set of three stories. One of them, I was listening to at the radio or something, and they were talking about an old and like a band that I used to listen to way back in the old days, and I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about them. I used to like them, and I'm like, I wonder whatever happened to that guy. And then it sort of sparked the idea of, what do rock stars do when they're done being rock stars? Like, what do they do? Like, do they just live like the rest of us? And so I kind of started playing around with it, and that was actually the inspiration for my very first published book, which is called One Week at the Faraway Inn. And it's this retired rock star, and he's looking for a business venture. He's looking to help his daughter, whatever, and he meets this woman who's out there on vacation. She's trying to take a solo vacation, and of course it's a romance, so that doesn't end up staying solo for very long. And so that's where that came from. Um and it's a quick book. It's they're For me, they're all kind of fun. There's no real heavy backstories in the stuff that I write. I like, my family makes fun of me. They tease me because, like, my favorite movie is The Avengers, because it's just fun popcorn movie. Like, that's what I like. I like fun popcorn entertainment. That's what I like to read, and that's what I love to write in my romance. So they're just fun stories. Um, the second one, I don't even know where that one came from. No, I do. That one actually was it. You wouldn't recognize it if I said it, but if you've ever seen the show Northwood's Law, um, we were there was a snowstorm happening outside, and we were basically stuck in the house, and there was a marathon on, so we watched it all day. And so then I started thinking about, what do those people do on their off times when they're not out saving the wilderness and whatever. And that was the inspiration for the Picture Me Yours, but it ended up transforming. It didn't end up staying a conservation officer. He ended up morphing into an electrician or something, and so it completely changed. But my inspiration kind of comes from everywhere. And that's actually, of the three, that's my favorite story in this series. And the Christmas one that I wrote, the Christmas at Whispering Hills, was actually based um, on a real life winery and distillery that my husband and I had visited when we had gone away for a weekend a couple of years ago. And I felt like the place was just beautiful. And I was like, this would be the best setting for a Christmas story. And so we were talking with the guy who owns it. And it turns out he used to live in our town. Like he used to live here, which was kind of wild. So we got talking to him for a long time and learned his background and all. And I was like, this whole thing is a perfect setup for a Christmas romance. So that's what I did. I mean, I played around with the geography and I changed some of the buildings on the property. But my inspiration is kind of everywhere and it's kind of all over the place. And so that's where that whole series comes from. So like I said, that one was very much connected by where the stories take place.
Right.
So when I started my next series, it's called Built to Last, and I've got 2 books in that series out. I kind of approached this one from more of the people. So it's all the people are all connected to each other. And so obviously they live in the same place, but there's a lot of people crossover in this new series. So, I approached it from a little bit different perspective, but
Kind of took what you learned from the first one and then
correct.
kind of rolled it in. I think that's one of the really cool things about writing too is especially, as a smaller writer, you kind of learn every single time you write
Yes.
something, whether it's a short story or it's a
Yeah.
giant book, you're constantly learning from what you did before. Just kind
Yep.
of striving to make each one better than the next. Um,
Yes.
and funny enough that you mentioned Northwoods Law, actually, because that's one of my favorite shows.
I love that show. We'll watch that all day. Yeah.
It's literally
Yeah.
on all day too.
Yes.
I actually wanted to do that when I was growing up. That's kind of one of the jobs that I wanted to do.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so yeah, I thought that was funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
um,
but like I said, it's amazing where your inspiration comes from. Like something as silly as
really,
a TV show on a snow day, but it turned into
it's
a book.
it's everywhere. And
Yes.
everywhere you look, everything that pops up. That's exactly why I have to keep a notes app on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Because we could just be driving around and I'll see a deer cross the road and I'm like, aha, I don't know why, but but it just
Yep.
does.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
would you say you're more of a plotter or a pantser?
Oh, I'm definitely a plotter. I'm definitely a plotter. Um, I have to, and I so are you familiar with Chuck Wendig?
Mhm.
So I read his book, The Kick-Ass Writer, and he talks in there about setting guideposts, right? And so in romance world, we have, romance beats, the specific beats you need to hit. And so I definitely will plot out all of those, like what has to happen and what I want the meet cute to look like, what I want the second, no way they call it the second. This is I can't do this, or what the dark moment is, or I have to know what those things are, even if they change as I go. I have to have a plan, right? I have to have a target to shoot at. Um, and so I will have all of those things plotted out. And then what happens to get from one guidepost to the other, from one beat to the other, I kind of leave up in the air and I just will kind of go with it. And so if things change as I write, then I'll adjust my guideposts and I'll adjust as I go. But I spend a lot of time plotting things out, my character development. I have I don't know if you've ever seen them, the writers thesaurus series, like the emotional wounds thesaurus and the
Yeah.
all of those ones. So I spend just hours reading through those and trying to, come up with, if somebody has a backstory of X, I want their present day behaviors to reflect that. So I spend a lot of time dealing with characters and getting in their heads and stuff like that. So I have a lot of stuff in here.
A lot of things to keep straight, which makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Because I get a mixture of answers when I ask people that question, and it's always fun to
Yeah.
see kind of what their reasoning is.
Yeah.
Because for my first book, I didn't. The only thing I wrote down was the characters' names and major places they'd go. I did not write anything else down. I did not um, plot anything out,
Oh,
and
getting hives just thinking of that.
me too. Because I learned, hey man, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because now you're going back through the book trying to find where you
Yes.
mentioned something so you
Yes.
can get the facts straight.
Oh,
And
yes.
I'm like, even if you just write a sentence about X goes to this place because he wanted to confront this person, and then
Yep.
you just take it from there. And then even if it's just small sentences, it's still something. Um,
Yeah.
what is one piece of advice that you would give to aspiring writers?
So, I can really only speak to what's worked, obviously, for me. And for me, the biggest thing was once I actually, came out to people as a writer, I would say the biggest thing is feedback. Like if you're writing for, if you're just writing for yourself, then you don't need to get the critical feedback. But if you're writing for other people, to my mind, it's imperative to have feedback. Like I've changed so my Stitches and Sparks, the one before my newest one, I had thought I had it finished, and my beta reader read it, and she came back and she was like, "That ending, that no," and I was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "No, absolutely not." So I said, "Okay." I mean, she was much nicer about it, but you know what I mean. So I was like, "Yeah, I think she's right," and so I rewrote the whole ending and was like, "Okay, how about now?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's much better." So feedback is huge. And also what comes with that is learning to hold your words and your work, hold it a little looser, right? Because you have to be able to separate someone's criticism of your work as separate from a criticism of you as a person. And that's I think probably not something, at least for me, that's not something that came easily. But I'll tell you, my first writers group that I belonged to, I learned that fast, right? Because they were I still love all of them. They're very lovely people. But when they would pull your stuff apart, they would pull your stuff apart. And honestly, it only made me stronger. But and it, like I said, it kind of helps you learn to, just let go and let them pull the work apart and let them help you make it stronger and understand that they're not pulling me apart as a person. You know what I mean? And so that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, especially was for me. I sometimes find myself taking things too personally, and
Hmm.
it made me really nervous to let people read this book before, because I was like, if they attack this thing and
Hmm.
rip it apart, in a sense, this is my baby. I put a lot of work into this. It's not super long. It's literally 92 pages. It's not.
Hmm.
It's a little over 30,000 words, so it's not something huge. But for
Yeah.
me, as a person who grew up like I have, and have had the struggles with education that I have, for me to do that is huge. Um,
Hmm.
so I was like, Ugh. And I actually I didn't even do beta readers for this book.
Okay.
I
Okay.
Now I regret it.
Okay.
Um,
But live and learn, right? So the next one you will,
exactly,
right? That's part of
exactly.
the process.
Really hard question for you, and I hate to do this. Coffee or
All right. What do you
tea?
got? Oh, that's an easy one. That's an easy one for me because my answer is actually both. And it's funny
Yes.
that you bring up coffee or tea, right? I'm very much a creature of habit. So when I get up in the morning, it's coffee, straight away coffee before I think, before I do anything. It's just coffee in the dark. in the quiet, right? And once my day is going, it's tea. It's herbal tea because I just like it. But in the newest book that I'm working on, my book three of this Built to Last series is it's called Coffee. At least right now, it's called Coffee and Kisses. And the male protagonist owns a little cafe by the beach, whatever. And his thing is coffee. He loves coffee. And so as part of my research, I was like, I wonder what it would be like to roast my own coffee like he does. And so I basically made coffee roasting my whole personality for like 3 weeks, and I bought the green coffee beans, and I tried roasting them in a pan, and then I tried roasting them in a popcorn popper, and then I bought, I was like, this is fantastic, and I'm like, oh, but our little food mill doesn't do these well, so I went out and bought a coffee grinder, and all the stuff. And I was like, oh, Target has this little crappy $5 French press, and I'm going to buy that because I've never had French press coffee. So I did. I made coffee my whole personality for like 3 weeks. And so, but if you want to write convincingly about a person who really likes coffee and all the things associated with coffee, to me, it made sense to have a better understanding of coffee aside from just throwing some scoops in the Keurig, and you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's what I did. So it long answer to a easy question, but that's what it
Hey,
is. So I like both.
sometimes that's what it takes, honestly, because
Yep.
people call us crazy because in our kitchen we have the French press, we
Yep.
have an iced coffee maker, we have a
I
Keurig,
have one of those. Yep.
we have a pour over, so the traditional coffee pot.
Yep.
We have the bean grinder because we found that certain companies, their specific blends taste better if grind them before you brew them. So I
Yep.
definitely, I definitely
Yes.
get it.
Yeah. And
Um,
there's this whole world out there of
oh
coffee
yeah,
that I had no idea. No idea.
it's
It's overwhelming.
it's crazy, and there's a big influx of people creating their own coffee blends, and so
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
it's definitely it's a rabbit hole.
Oh, it is. It really, yeah, it really is. It really is, and it's a lot of fun. I think it's pretty fun. I think it's fun. I've enjoyed it.
It is. It's definitely a for somebody who's never done it, I would say try it because it's definitely a unique experience for sure.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
as someone who writes a lot, do you find it easier to write if it's quiet, or do you need some sort of music or a TV show on in the background?
So definitely not TV. And sometimes I work best when it's just like plain old just quiet. Everybody's gone. Usually that's if like everyone's been home for a while and my house has been, people. Once everyone's gone, I need a day or so and just like silence. I really like silence. But generally when I write, I listen to music without words. It can't have words because if it has words, I start singing, and if I start singing, I'm done. I'm done. Um, but it also depends what I'm writing. So if I'm just kind of just going and it's just kind of whatever, I can listen to anything from classical music to my son laughs because I listen to one of the Assassin's Creed soundtracks because I like the video game soundtracks. Um, I love those. Um, but I was in the book that I just published in Barstools and Beginnings. It's called. I wrote a scene where the two protagonists they had met and then they kind of went their separate ways and then they meet up again at a wedding. So I found myself going out and sort of compiling a list of songs that were the stereotypical wedding songs. And so I like so I would listen to these songs and be like, yep, this is what a wedding feels like. And so I would listen to that and then I would go write the scene. So you had that same kind of wedding vibe. But for the most part, it's not nothing with words, nothing with words. And then any kind of um, I want to say not class instrumental is the word I'm looking for. And I will say my favorite music to write to, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I could be wrong how I pronounce this, but it's Ludovico. is his first name. Einaudi, Einaudi, and I think he's Italian. I think he's Italian. But his music is just, it's so atmospheric, and it's super. It can be like sad emotion. It can be like super exciting emotion. But he's all over, and it's that's my hands down favorite to listen to when I write.
I think, see, that's where I'm kind of the opposite of you because I all of my stuff pretty much mostly has words. I just throw on my liked playlist on Spotify, which is literally 75 hours of just
Yep.
every single genre that I'm into. Um, or if it's something that I really need to get serious about, I do have a classical playlist that's got Bach and Beethoven and a little bit of Tchaikovsky. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I've had people tell me they're like, oh, I can't write if I don't have XYZ TV series playing in the background or a certain movie, and I'm like, I would that would that would that would hinder me more than because I'd want to
Yes.
turn
Yeah.
around and like see what's going
Watch it.
on.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do
Yeah.
it.
Well, yeah, like I said, I can't even have words because I will just sing. I will just be lost, and nobody wants that. So nobody wants
um,
that.
has writer's block ever been an issue for you? And if so, how did you kind of pull yourself out of it?
So absolutely 100%. Um, and it depends. I tend not to I tend not to struggle too much when it hits. Having said that, it hits kind of, I don't want to say frequently because it's not that it's frequently. It tends to go with the stress level of my life. So the last like 6 months of my life have been incredibly, incredibly stressful. And I found I had a really hard time sitting down to get anything done. Um, and I find when I force it, it just doesn't it just doesn't work. So I tend to either find something else to do. Like I have all kinds of craft projects that I do that hit, that hit that itch of creativity. Um, I also um, so I've also been able to break through writer's block. I came across this. I don't even know where I read it or saw it or heard it. I don't even know, but it was a strategy where you take characters that you currently have and you write a completely separate standalone, just a scene, maybe 5, 10, whatever pages, with those characters based on a um, a prompt word. And the prompt that I don't remember even how I got it, where it came from, but the prompt was pillow. And I was like, pillow? How am I going to write this? It was a single dad and a kid. And I'm like, and pillow. And so then I just kind of started playing around with, okay, pillow. So maybe she's sitting on a pillow. Maybe they're playing a game in front of the fireplace. Oh, so it's winter time. And so it all kind of just started tumbling, you know what I mean, from there. And so sometimes it's stepping out of what I'm working on and stepping into something else that will start that creativity going again. Um,
Right.
but that's not all the time. Sometimes I just put it aside and I go do something else. And I'll be in the shower and go, oh God, okay, that's what was supposed to be. And so then I come out of the shower and I start writing because I figured out what I was supposed to go forward from.
And sometimes that's all
But
it takes is just a step away or a
yeah.
distraction that has nothing to do um, with writing to kind of force your brain to just think about something else. um, Before we end off today, do you have any events or signings or anything upcoming that you would like to promote?
So I do. I mean, it's not for like another 6 months or so. It's the end of October. It's in Massachusetts, and it's called Fall in Love New England, and it's just a convention of romance readers and writers and vendors. That sell who knows all manner of things related. Um, and I've been to this event I don't know, 3 or 4 times anyway, but always as a reader. And so I've never been as an author before. And so I've got now what 6, 7 books that I'll have there. So I will be there. It's October, and I meant to write it down, and I'm like, I'll remember it. I won't remember it. It's October 24 through 26 of 2025. I think it's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'll be there Friday and Saturday. And you can, if anyone's interested, is into romance as a genre, it's just fallinlovenewengland.com. There's all kinds of information on there. Um, but if I could, I would love to also actually put out, if anyone's interested in reading what I write, and because I'm not in Kindle Unlimited, so um, I can't just say, "Oh, go read me for free." But you can always go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, and you get my novella. It's called Always You, and that's just at eabradyauthor.com. And if you like it, you can stick around on the newsletter. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. You know what I mean? I'm pretty low key as far as that goes. So grab it, unsubscribe, or stick around, because that's that's where I talk with my readers, people who like what I write to who like to read what I write. So yeah, so really, so there's the Fall in Love New England, but then I mean, who knows when people are going to watch this, right? So there's also the Mount Washington Book Ball that's happening next April, so a year from now,
Right.
up at Mount Washington in New Hampshire. And so that is also happening. I don't have the details right at hand because I wasn't thinking that I would mention it because it's so far away, but I forget the internet is forever. So I will have links for that at the eabradyauthor.com. So all that information, if anyone's
And
interested.
and I will also have all of her socials and website linked below in the description so you guys can go quick access and check everything out and maybe sign up for the newsletter. Um,
Yes,
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.